Hello, here we are for the second interview of Bashir Kung Fu episodes. Today we will interview Master Yasser Bagrami of Southern and Northern martial arts, especially Pak Mei Kung Fu and Southern Hakka Kung Fu. Hello, how are you?
Hello, I'm fine, thank you, and thank you for having me on your channel.
We are really honored to have you. Very important Sifu in the martial arts scenario. So let's start. Can you start introducing yourself, your Kung Fu background, other martial arts background, please?
Okay. I started my training in 1981, and I've been training ever since. I started in Taekwondo, and I carried on Taekwondo till 1994, when I switched over to the Chinese internal arts, starting with the Tai Chi Chuan, and from 96 onwards in Xingyi and Bagua. And I studied very, very intensively. I used to travel to Hong Kong, to Singapore, to various places to learn. Fast forward a little bit. In 1998, I started jointly learning Wing Chun and Hakoryu Jiu-Jitsu. I've got an advanced black belt in Hakoryu Jiu-Jitsu, as well as in Taekwondo also, but I don't do it anymore. My actual Hakka Kung Fu journey started I was dabbling in the Hakka martial arts since 2004 in Southern Praying Mantis, but not really formally learning them, till I met my late Sifu in 2009, June of 2009, and this is the K.S. Yung Southern Praying Mantis Kung Fu system. This is a Kung Fu system that was brought to India in a city called Calcutta, which had the only Chinatown in the country. It was brought to India by a merchant marine, my Grand Sigung. His name was Cheng Qiu, around the turn of the early 20th century. So 1905 and 1903, around that time. And it was taught privately only to the Hakka Chinese, throughout. Sifu Chen passed on the system to a few people. One of them was my Sigung, K.S. Yung, sometime in 1950, I think. And Sigung K.S. Yung took the system forward. And in 1975, he opened the system up to everybody, including Indians and whoever would wanted to learn the style. He was fourth generation in Southern Praying Mantis. My late Sifu was fifth generation. And my late Sifu, along with his two other Kung Fu classmates, were the last enter the gate students of Sifu K.S. Yung. There are a few others as well. I'm aware of a few. But these were the last three. And unfortunately, two of them have passed away, my late Sifu and my Sibak, just recently. I traveled to Calcutta, and I learned one-on-one, staying with my Sifu in his house. I learned one-on-one our version of Southern Praying Mantis. I would say it's because I'm aware of the other Southern Mantis styles. I'm aware of how to Chaugar, maybe visually. I'm aware of the Juklum visually again. And I also have a lot of friends in these systems. And I see bits of my art style within them. But I would say the closest to our style in terms of energetics would be the late Henry Puyi, Grandmaster Henry Puyi's version of Juklum is what is closest to what we do, as well as we share a few similarities with the Iron Ox Spy, which I have seen visually, so I cannot really know whether it's, that's what it is. Then I on the recommendation of my Sifu, I started looking for a Pak Mei master. And in 2014, I started formally learning Pak Mei. And I've been learning it very, very slowly as a complement to my Hakka Kuin. When I had started my Hakakuin, I already had a very, very good background of Tai Chi, Shinge, and Bagua. So I had already the understanding.
That's my next question. As a Taekwondo practitioner, what called your attention to start Chinese martial arts, and especially in the internal styles? And being a sifu of internal styles, what called your attention to like restart learning or continue
Okay.
learning? I would say the Haka
Yeah.
styles.
Okay. See, I'm from the generation where we didn't have the internet and news was very difficult to get. But I'll share a story. When I was 8 years old, I was a very naughty child. And in India, where I'm from, the city of Hyderabad, there was a fairly thick tree. And for some silly joke, I was trying to pull it out. And then I felt really frustrated and angry. And then I felt something which was not my physical strength help me pull the tree out. And I did so by the roots. And I was really surprised. I threw it down and I ran. My grandmother was surprised. The gardener was surprised. So I was wondering, what is this that happened? Fast forward till 1982, I was reading one of my mother's magazines and it had an article on one of the Taiwanese masters, Hong Yi-Xiang. And the word Tai Chi was mentioned. So I was like, oh, Tai Chi. And, he had, what was written was similar experiences. So I said, okay, I want to learn this somehow. In 94, I landed up in Delhi under Sensei Rashid Ansari, who I would consider as one of my main teachers. He had apart from being a Taekwondo master, he had an extensive, background in the Chinese martial arts, because his uncle was an ambassador and he would be traveling with him throughout, and he learned a lot. So in his class, although I had joined for Taekwondo, there were guys who knew Hang Kuan, there were guys who were practicing Wing Chun, and I started my first Tai Chi lesson from him. Because it's another good story that he wanted 5 of the students to help him, because we were doing a 24 episode series on Tai Chi for the national television network called Doordarshan. And I was like, pick me. And that's how I started Tai Chi. And once I started, I just gave up my Taekwondo, all of that completely. And I focused entirely on these systems. I can still maybe kick and stuff, but obviously not like before, but I just completely put that aside.
Really interesting. And can you share with us the core concepts of your self-improvement Kung Fu? Like training?
See, okay, our entire system is based on very solid fundamentals, because the really good Kung Fu is in the basics and the fundamentals. Even the advanced so-called Kung Fu is in the basics and the fundamentals. So we have a very heavy emphasis on the footwork. We have a specific footwork called Lien Yap Fu or lotus flower footwork. I've seen similar footwork conceptually in Bagua, the mud stepping, because this footwork, see, it's all about when you in combat, it's all about your momentum going forward and how well you handle your momentum in that situation, and how rooted you are with your momentum. So this stepping teaches us that. So we spend a lot of time with just in perfecting the stepping with correct breathing. So our breathing is from the lower belly. There's a very particular shape that we hold with the lower belly and the tailbone while we do the footwork. So a beginning student spends at least 5 or 6 months just on the stepping. And the stepping should, because I myself have seen that when you use the stepping correctly, you can actually take over an opponent's space, while you have your internals, or your body structure intact. So our fundamentals are very important. We have 5 empty hand forms. Our main form is called Kibujin. This is similar to the other three-step arrow forms in the other mantis styles. We have a form called Pie-Sit. It's actually stance work with some hand shapes. It's just to show a student that, okay, this is what is possible with the footwork. We have a form called Sain-Su, which has two internal movements in that, the rib cage, the rib bone power movements. Then we have a form called Fakyan, which is entirely finger strikes. Because in advanced mantis, after the phoenix fist, it's the fingers that cause harm. And the last one is Chapfu, which mostly is like a kicking form. And these are the 5 forms, and a student spends a year in each of the forms. And that is how you develop. The whole idea is that through the fundamental training, the system goes inside your subconscious. So therefore, when you need to use it, it's your subconscious mind that brings the system out, which we will discuss when we discuss the fighting part later on. This is a common chain that I have from my Tai Chi and Bagua, and I found the same thing here. All I can tell you is that whatever I learned in Old-Yang, Tai Chi, or Bagua, conceptually is present in Southern Praying Mantis, as well as Pakme. The principles.
And you commented about a full set of finger strikes. Us in Tilgargao Kung Fu, Hakka Kung Fu, we almost don't punch. We only do the phoenix first or finger hittings. So we have intensive palm training about like iron palm, cotton palm. Do you have something similar of a specific training for that or not?
Okay. See, we have most of our finger training is done through our main set. It's through breathing, and yes, you do have a little conditioning. But my personal view on conditioning is that your body should just have enough conditioning that it doesn't go into shock when you sit, or your mind doesn't go into shock. Because regardless of how well you're conditioned, a finger or a phoenix will go through that conditioning. This is my personal experience. We do have small, training sets specifically for the iron palm, the soft palms.
Right. So, in your point of view, what makes your Southern Praying Mantis branch unique? What do you think that most is the most different part of by looking of other branches like Shogar, Joklum?
Okay. See, our Southern Praying Mantis branch was made for very, very small people and very thin people. Because even in the past, the masters would see if somebody was of a certain size, physical size, they would not teach him. So our Grand Sigung was very thin and very short. Sifu Chen was almost a dwarf, the one who brought the style in. So it's mostly sinking power coming from the top and going forward, like smothering somebody. I'm actually physically very big for our style. Okay, I wouldn't say that. See, I think all of Mantis is the same. It's just how the masters developed it separately. Chaugar was developed separately. Joklum was developed separately, but the core essence is the same. We believe in that. Just keep to a few things that you can learn very well, and you can apply very well, and you can apply very fast.
And for you, how was the experience of training more than one style? Did you think easier or more difficult? You have to readjust some habits. How it was for you?
Okay. Thankfully, I have a very good memory, and learning these styles, I have almost like a photographic memory. I'm an artist. I paint and sculpt. So learning these styles was more of a memory exercise. Like I still remember, like for example, the Taekwondo forms, like I would still remember them. So it's not, and I actually look more for the internal principles and what is common between the systems rather than what is separate. So what is the underlying thread between this system and that system? And in the end, it's just, for example, the internal styles they work in a separate way to the external styles. And I'll explain that to you. For example, an external style, okay, your body has two kinds of, like, your body is designed in two ways. For example, one is your muscle structure and your skeletal structure, which is like your armor padding. So if you have the really hard karate or the taekwondo or the Shaolin, you get these strikes and the body takes it and you have a bruise. This is one way of training. But your body is also 70% water. And and you also have a reflex, like, if someone punches you, kind of, learn to take it. But how do you go beyond that and attack that 70% water like a torpedo? This is where the internal styles come in. That's the biggest difference, that the internal styles attack the body's that 70% water structure. That's how the training is different.
That's very good definition, because many people talk about the difference between internal and external, but don't consider this water composition. So for me, it was really interesting, this concept.
So to attack, for example, that water system, you have, fingers, the phoenix fist, the soft palms, the soft back palms. They'll go beyond that flinch reflex and they go inside. And I was training with my Sihing, and by accident, he punched me on my stomach, and I felt like a tornado go inside. And it was a very, very light punch, and I actually felt it. So I was like, okay. I mean, this is me on the receiving end. And so this is what I feel the biggest, definition.
And talking about this difference, what do you consider different and similarity in Northern and Southern Kung Fu? How was for you this relation about power generation, about methodologies of training?
Okay. See, I don't know much. I mean, if you say Bagua and Shingi as Northern Kung Fu, I really wouldn't classify them as such. But Taekwondo would be the closest to Northern Kung Fu, for example, like Shaolin. It was more of using a lot of torque, a lot of hip torque on a very large scale, using more of a floating route, you're moving around, etc. This is what I would say. Southern styles are more grounded. The legs are for standing, the hands are for fighting. That's what I would say.
I see. And you said you have also learned Wing Chun, and I'm a Wing Chun teacher too, and I see many people teach Wing Chun as a really external style based mostly on some mechanics or even arm abilities. So how would you transfer this power generation that Tai Chi, Xingyi, and the Southern Mantis and Pak Mei, they really do have this internal power to like a more external style that is usually taught more in an external way?
See, Wing Chun has the infrastructure to take on the engine of the Hakakuin, by the way. It's got the infrastructure. Okay. I wouldn't comment on people whether they know it or they don't know. But I know a few years ago, there was a gentleman in Malaysia. He put the infrastructure of the Sanchin form of 5 ancestors inside his Wing Chun, and he gave it some black flag or some name like that. But it worked very well. And I see that infrastructure, that those mechanics for the float, sink, swallow, and spit are very much there in Wing Chun. But I think probably that's the engine that has not been put, or that's what most of the students are striving to put, or most of them, or maybe some of them have that. That's what I can say about Wing Chun. I wouldn't say it's an external style. Even to make it work, you need to be soft and relaxed, and you need to have that grounding which you learn from day one, from the Silam Tao, the ground energy, transferred out into the punch. So I would say it's an internal external style. To make it more internal, you put in the Sanchin or the Sambuchin or the Pakme Jigbo mechanics, and yeah, it's a different ball game after that.
And for example, what do you consider is different from the time you start learning and nowadays times? For example, when you teach, do you think different of the way where you beginning? Do you think there is a change of methodology, or you try keeping the same method?
See, what I believe and what I've seen over the years is that the internal styles and their methods, for a student to grasp them, doesn't take 20 years or 15 years. It takes 6 to 8 months of correct training, because what they're doing is that these are the body's natural mechanisms, right? But they have been suppressed throughout the years because of bad living, etc. And it's up to the teacher to remove this, break away these bad habits, so that the body can express itself, naturally. Therefore, every student that comes is different. So I can't, for example, have a class where I have 50 students, because I wouldn't be able to teach them anything. I usually teach 3 or 4 people at a time, because then each of those 4 people bring different challenges to me as a teacher, because I have to see, okay, I need to break these bad habits so that they can do X, Y, Z. And I trust in the methods that I've been taught, because these are time-tested methods. And I've seen myself that they work. And also, as an example, I've seen that it's 6 to 8 months of regular, consistent, correct training. The student breaks away most of the bad habits, and it's like as if they're a new person, because the body is now expressing itself as it's supposed to be expressing.
Right, that's really interesting. So based on this and more content, what do you consider is the most challenge of learning and teaching Kung Fu nowadays?
Nowadays, people have, for example, during my Sifu's times, or even my time, we didn't have the internet. So knowledge was very, very sought after, and whatever we managed to get, it was like really hard fought, and we really worked at it. Now almost everything is on the internet, on YouTube, and students have a lot of opportunities to know a lot more things that I did not have, or anyone else that I know did not have access to. But along with that, most people don't have the intention to put in the work required. They want something that's, overnight. They want overnight success. They don't want to put in the work. Not all of them. Quite a few of them don't want to put in the hard work, because without the hard work, without the hard, consistent training, you won't really get the Kung Fu. And the whole idea is to put the Kung Fu in the body. And to put the Kung Fu in the body, it's boring, repetitive, fundamental work. And, that's really, that's a challenge. It was a challenge for me as well. But, if you really want to advance, this is what you need to do. That's what I see there. And people are more concerned with, okay, we want something instant. We want MMA. We want this. We want that. That makes us look cool, So that's what.
Yes, I agree with you, because I'm not a so old practitioner. I started Kung Fu 15 years ago only, but I think when I started, we used to have less distractions. We didn't have many things to do, and it was like the beginning of internet. And we usually focused more on that, as even if it was a hobby or not. We use it to focus more, and nowadays I think people has less distractions, but at the same time they have more sources to compare. So if one does the research, he can find really good sifus to learn from.
Definitely, definitely.
So what do you consider people look for when they look for Kung Fu nowadays? What do you think is their expectation?
Okay, people who look, for example, for Tai Chi, they want to be popular at parties, stand out in the crowd. Hey, I do Tai Chi. Oh, you do Tai Chi, very good. I'm being very, very sarcastic, I'm sorry. I speak from experience. But there is the whole world of Kung Fu is slowly shrinking. Even in the years that I used to travel to Hong Kong, it was always the foreigners who were learning from the teachers. The young Chinese were in the arcades at that time. So, I feel Kung Fu is slowly just eroding away. And you have few pockets here and there. It shouldn't be the case, but that's unfortunate.
Do you consider that people don't I think people in the last years with Kung Fu, they focused more on film industry or performance, and then in some ways we lost a little bit of the full contact fighting, and we didn't earn the space in these modern combat sports. Do you think this may be the reason that we have less students? Because, for example, I don't know how it's in your city, but in Brazil, if one wants to learn fighting, Kung Fu is almost the last option. They would go to Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, Muay Thai, boxing. So these more traditional arts like karate, even taekwondo and Kung Fu, I think we lost a little bit this specific public,
Yeah, definitely. I'll agree to that. And I also don't agree to the Kung Fu masters who say, oh, our style is too deadly for the ring. It's not. You know how to punch, you know how to kick, right? You know how to grapple. Just get your stamina in order and step into the ring. Nobody's asking you to gouge someone's eye or grab someone's throat. You can still step in there. You see? So this is my personal view. For example, like what is there out there in MMA, etc. It's all there in your basic first 6 months of your Kung Fu training anyway. Punching, kicking, various kinds of kicking, perhaps grappling. Maybe you need to, if you don't have it, you need to maybe do some wrestling, shuja or whatever, and there you have it. And you can keep your traditional part, alive, the forms, the techniques, and use them where it's required. But you can take this little box and put, of basic stuff and take it with you to an MMA arena if you want, and prove yourself. Nothing is stopping you, and it doesn't mean that this is what has happened, that most of, and I actually blame the generation before us, because they came and they came with a lot of stories. Oh, I did this, and no one could verify or corroborate those stories. So an entire cult was made, that the cult of the Sifu, that my Sifu did this. So no one could verify. Today, if I tell you something and someone's watching, they'll immediately go Google it or go on YouTube, and they'll come to their own conclusion, right? So that is what our generation is suffering from, that, okay, our style is too deadly to, it's not. I know one of my Taekwondo guys, he used to regularly, I used to train Taekwondo in Delhi. He used to regularly go to Bombay to fight in these underground matches just to get money. He did very well. And he's like, all I did was, I used my side thrust, and I used to punch, and I used to do spin back kicks. That's it. Earned lots of money. one of my Wing Chun siblings used to fight again like this, and he was just, this was a Leungting lineage, so he was like probably ninth student grade or something, so not even really very advanced, but he had the stuff. So it's not that Kung Fu, Kung Fu principles are time tested. We're actually very lucky because we have a whole ancestry that's worked and time tested what we know. It's just that we need to apply it realistically, and we need to apply it using our head, and we need to apply it like even when you train, you need to apply it. You need to have some contact with whoever you're training with. So they feel that you can't just go and maybe do some sensitivity work or do some fancy qigong and do some forms and come home. It's not going to work like that. You need to do pad work. You need to do 2% drills. You need to maybe just put on a glove, those little gloves, and just try it out. Get your distancing, get your timing in order, and in the end, it's not whether you know Kung Fu or MMA or anything. It's whether you want to fight or not. It's as simple as that. And someone who wants to fight, regardless of what they know, they'll fight.
I agree with you. I usually tell my students that Kung Fu, for me at least, is not techniques. It's a way of moving. So how you move your body. So you don't need to use the deadly techniques all the time. Because, for example, if you are a security guard, and you need to fight, you won't use it. So every fight for me is adaptation. So if you have to adaptation with gloves, for me it will be still Kung Fu, because the mechanics of the body will still be your Kung Fu style. It doesn't matter if you are punching or hitting, kicking. The way of move should be this composition of the Kung Fu style that you practice, or even more than one style. So I totally agree with you. I think sometimes people make the excuses, and because of this, our reputation in modern day fighting, we lost a little bit of it. So in this way, do you consider like modern athletes could benefit from, for example, your Kung Fu training?
Absolutely. I've also worked with MMA guys and athletes, and I've given them little snippets, and I said that, look, just open your mind. For example, I taught one guy Bagua. I said, open your mind. This is just to teach you strategy, teach your body how to move in a certain way. I'm not saying that you use this, but you do the exercise because it's going to teach your body, it's going to release a few reflexes. So he's like, what do you mean? I said, okay, the first thing that will happen is you have a reflex that goes like this. When you train, you're going to be doing that. You're going to convert that reflex to this. Wouldn't that help your MMA? So he goes, yeah, okay. So it's all about that. And he saw the logic to it, and he just took what was required for him. And he does his MMA stuff, the bag work, the ring work, the kicking, the what have you. But he also does his circle walking and the palm changes, etc. So I feel traditional Kung Fu has a lot to offer. Even if people don't want to learn the whole thing, maybe they can take a little bit of what they want. Just get their health in order, get their reflexes in order, get their movement and their body connections in order. In the end, it's a fighter. A fighter is a fighter. And whatever in the old days, whatever enhanced your Kung Fu, you picked it up and you learned it. So same goes here.
I agree with you. And what's your opinion about the Kung Fu competitions? I mean, even set competitions or Sanda competitions. What do you think we should get better in this way, or keeping more traditional?
See, I would say that, okay, you keep the traditional Kung Fu, because that's the heritage. You keep that traditional Kung Fu as it is. You do the work. You help yourself. And if you wish to of course, there'll be weekend kung fu guys who just want the art, whatever. But if you wish to do the ring fighting is very different from how you train traditionally. But it doesn't mean that you just adapt your traditional training to to gear it more towards the ring. That's all you do. In the old days, the traditional Sifus lifted stones. Go lift weights. It's the same thing. In the old days, the Sifus worked on improving themselves physically and being physically fit. If you see the old pictures of any of the masters, they're strong and fit. So why isn't that here today? Why do you have masters with bellies like this and faces like this? Keep yourself fit. Go lift weights. Do powerlifting. Do freehand exercises. Do whatever it takes. Be a full. Do run, jog. I had recently met a Pakme Sifu from the UK, Sifu Alvin Chen. He was a senior most student of Sifu Tang Chotak, and he's in his 70s. And this man was strong. He absolutely traditionally only knew Pakme, and he's been training Pakme since before I was born. And he was a strong man. And he's like, yeah, I go jogging, and my jogging has taken a back seat now, but I do it every day. And then I lift weights and stuff. So yeah, that's what you need to do. You need to be a full overall martial artist, and your forms and your sansao and your this and your that and your individual techniques and your footwork, they have their place, but so does other attribute training, like deadlifting or squats and etc. etc. You need to be a complete full martial artist. My main teacher in Delhi, who's also my uncle, he's in the 60s. He's super fit.
Yes, I think
And
we need many tools to be a complete fighter at the level that demands these modern competitions, right?
yes, see, these are also professional fighters. People who practice kung fu are everyday people who have a job, who have a family. These guys who train and who fight in MMA, etc., that's their job. They're training every day. So how can you compare that 6 hours of training? Would you have that time? You won't. I don't have that time.
Yeah.
I just have a small, apart from my family, my work, etc., commitments, I have this small little window that I need to train in. Most of my hardcore training was done when I was young and single. Now it's just maintenance training,
And talking about a little bit of methods of training, I see the Southern Mantis in general, they have a lot of this tension training before, like Sambojin and this kind of sets. And I'm not a Tai Chi expert, but I see Tai Chi is more like dynamic training, not this strength training of tension. So how do you see this comparison of methods about reaching the results? Because I feel like we have many routes to the top of the mountain, but often leads there, right?
Okay. Now, when I speak of Tai Chi, I can only speak of the Tai Chi I learned, which was from the late Earl Montague, which is the old Yang. Now, you see, the hard and soft is yin and yang. Okay. Now, even when you train your Tai Chi, you still have that active and that hard and that soft. Because if you were completely limp, you'd be like this. You have something that's holding it up. It's more subtle in Tai Chi. Then you build spirals. What's a circle and a straight line? It's a spiral. So it's all about spirals. So the difference between Tai Chi and Southern Mantis would be high level Tai Chi, if you do it in a very closed phone booth, would be like the mechanics of Southern Mantis from inside. It's okay. It's like your energy of your body is like a big spring. Okay. And your body is a box. So eventually, through your training, the box becomes smaller and smaller, but that spring is the same, but it ends up fitting into a smaller box. So eventually your body's box is very small, but it's got this really big spring inside. You see, that's the end result, at least from my experience. So it's all about getting that making your body's box smaller, the movements. For example, in the beginning of Tai Chi is that, right? Now, if I make it very small and I just move from here, and it's actually the waist moves the arms, so it's going to be like that. Like a beginner would do that, but if your waist is used, like your waist always moves the arms. So if your waist is used to move the arms, it's going to be like so, right? Now, if I make this movement very small, it's just going to be okay. It's hardly as if I've moved. So that circle has become smaller, but it's all over here. That's where, beyond that is where Southern Mantis comes in.
I see.
Okay.
I
So-
had a little time in Chen Tai Chi, and we in the beginning we would practice the circle, like the division would be 3 really like lines. But with time we used to divide the circle in more, in a pack of many lines, small lines, to make the movement like a more circle in this way. So the circle would be smaller, but with really more divisions of the way of moving.
Okay. See, I'll give you something from my Mantis styles. It's the feet, like the power comes from the feet, channeled by the waist, and ends up in the fingers, right? Controlled by the waist. Same with Tai Chi. The power's from the feet, the waist controls it, and it ends in your hands. So you've got tantines here, 2 in your feet, then your tantine here as well. So you work all of that. So it's just the size of the spirals. They're just very small. I'll give you an example. It's like the arcs that you work in. Like if this is a big arc, normal, Southern Mantis would work on this part of the arc and try and develop that short power from that arc.
I see. Really interesting, this part. And how do you think Kung Fu affected your life in the way, like you are also a really good painter? Do you think Kung Fu helped you in these other parts of your life?
Yeah, absolutely. Because one of the things that it helped me was it helped my hemispheres join. For example, I can paint and write with both my hands. Now, it's not something that's, it's just something that came over time, learning joining the hemispheres. That's entirely from my Kung Fu. It helped me in the corporate world, dealing with people, keeping calm, not having stress. So actually, Kung Fu is my life, I should say.
And how do you think, you told a little bit about this, and I would further a little bit. How do you think the painting helped you in the Kung Fu, a part of the memory?
Okay, see, that's a good question, because I don't paint illustratively. I just paint spontaneously. Okay, like I'll just start with a line and see where it goes, and just choose colors intuitively, and what comes out is just something. It's a story that was not there. So the Kung Fu that I train in is also intuitive, and if you like, I'll explain it to you in detail. So that's where it merges. I think it's my Kung Fu is the one that helps my painting, not the other way around.
I see. And this is a question I want to ask every people I interview is, how do you see Kung Fu in 100 years? And what do you like for Kung Fu in 100 years?
See, Kung Fu, the essence of Kung Fu is, okay, the principles are universal for how a human body works, but each age has its own challenges. Okay, for example, the Kung Fu that we practice, that Kung Fu was only within China. So the Chinese Kung Fu guys were training to fight other Chinese Kung Fu guys because China was so huge. They didn't really have, exposure to other martial arts, right? But that doesn't mean that they couldn't address it. It's just that they were training to fight other Kung Fu guys. Even if you see some Kung Fu schools, they train to fight the same style. It doesn't work that way. We have a different scenario now wherein we have so many other styles and we need to adapt how our Kung Fu works to counter these styles. Yeah. What will happen is that over a period of time, you see the skill sets get lost. And in the old days, what the masters would do is that they would teach 90% of the system and leave the 10% untaught to the disciples. So what would happen is that the disciples would try and figure out this 10%, and by doing so, they would add life into the Kung Fu style and evolve it for their generation. That's how it was supposed to work. That's why, for example, Bagua, if you see Bagua, how it was in the early 20th century and how it is now, it's all different. But these are different aspects of how the masters interpreted their work. And that's how it should be. Like you have the essence, you see how you can apply that essence to, your time period and whether you can work in that time period, but keep that essence. No need to, like reinvent the wheel, keep that essence, but see how you can apply, and what you need to actually see how far you can take to apply what you know. That's the challenge of each master, because the essence is time and tested and it's been there for a long time. You don't need to really change it. You need to but play around with it to see how you can apply it to different genres. Our biggest challenge now are the MMA guys, Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu guys. I once had an encounter with a Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu guy. He was all over me, and it reminded me of a Monkey Kung Fu guy that I knew. He was all over me like a rash. Like, what do I do to him? Do I bite him? If I bite him, he's going to bite me in 10 places, for example. So then you have to see, okay, how will my Kung Fu work with this? And keep your, the Kung Fu that will be there in 100 years from now is not the Kung Fu that you and I know. It'll be completely different. Maybe the essence will be there. And also it needs to grow as well, because otherwise it's just like an antique piece that you train just to keep the tradition up, and it doesn't maybe serve you any practical value. That's what.
I totally agree with you. Yes, we need to keep the concept, but I see Kung Fu also not just a fighting, but an art of expression. So people do the expression different in their personal beliefs, but also the time that they live. So to keep Kung Fu growing and not disappear, we need to make it relevant to these days. Now, so that people have like weapons and this kind of stuff. So if we stop growing as a martial art, we get like lost in the time.
Indeed.
Are there any topics you would like to discuss?
Sure, I'll discuss a few points that would help whoever's watching. For example, the whole concept of fighting. Okay. Now, as a human being, you cannot fight using techniques. Okay. Your brain will freeze. So you have to fight. You have to let the animal out to fight. Okay. So how does that work is that you need to get into the triune brain, the reptile brain, the brainstem, the part that connects your spine to the brain. So for that, you have the higher mammalian brain, the lower mammalian brain, and the triune brain. That's where all the reflexes are. So this is where I have seen Tai Chi and my Southern Mantis and the other styles, they work on the triune brain. Okay. So there are a few pointers that I will share with you. For example, I'll give you an idea of Tai Chi. The triune brain works when you look at something from the corner of your eye. Okay. So when you're doing your Tai Chi, for example, if you're turning your head, you're not really going to help yourself. So let's say I want to turn towards you with Peng. So I look at you through the corner of my eye. and then I turn. Okay, so that's embedding the peng in my triune brain. In our mantis, we don't take our hands higher than this. It's just till the corner of the eye. So that's one way. So training so that things come from the corner of the eye. Second is, if someone comes at you, it's a very unnatural thing for a human being to go into an attack. But if you go into an attack, then whatever you have trained takes over subconsciously and you do the dirty work. Okay. Third thing is, you need to use what is called eagle vision. You have two kinds of vision. One is the like a Bruce Lee vision, that where you're looking at, like direct at something. Second is, for example, if I'm like, the first vision is I'm looking at you directly. Okay. That will give me tunnel vision because I'll only be looking at you. Eagle vision is, if I look at you as part of the whole, okay, then any move that you make, my subconscious will pick up on it. So when you move, I move before you. Like you move, I let you move, but I get there before you. So this is how these are the concepts that I've seen that are universal, and this is what just these few things will really change your training routine. When you move into an attack, also you're like in the mantis, it's your reflexes of doing that or doing this will become whatever forward. So you've already bridged, and that's where your forms come in, because forms are teaching you the principles of moving in a certain way. And when your triune brain takes over, it's the form or whatever your main core training is that comes out and does the dirty work. But in order to do that, you need to train it correctly. And this is what will happen when you have a really, like a very nasty fight on the street, which would be only 2 or 3 seconds. So in those 2 or 3 seconds, you need to have that advantage. This is what would give you that advantage. But when you finish, you don't even know what's happened. And then you run away, and then at home you go, oh, okay, I did this, I did that. So the triune brain training the reptile brain training is very, very important. And these are the methods, like look at things from the corner of your eye. When you're training with somebody, see him from the corner of the eye. Okay, let your reflexes take over. When someone's attacking you, go into the attack rather than going back or that, and look at them with eagle vision rather than looking at them directly. These few things, if you just, and again, these don't take long. If you do this kind of training for 40 days, 2 months, it just becomes a natural way of moving for you, because that's how your body is designed. You see, you're an apex predator actually. If you ask someone to just turn and point at something very fast, they'd be able to do that because that tracking mechanism is there it's hardwired into you.
That's really interesting, useful. I will use it in my training. And I would like to know, like in your school, thinking about it, you have like a progression of sparring training. How do you do that?
Okay, I start off people with sensitivity training, teaching them how to think with tactile senses, like radar lock into someone's energy, mass, etc. Then I teach them some drills taken from Sansao, like some Sansao drills, that okay, you can do that, and let them feel that on the pad. Now, I'm not a very big fan of pad training because, for example, if I'm training somebody and I keep the pad over here and he keeps hitting it here, when he really needs it in a pub or somewhere, he's gonna, instead of hitting someone here, he's gonna hit him here. You see, so it's a very fine line. So, but I do give the pad so that they get that idea of movement, and then I say, okay, pad up, and just very lightly get distancing, gauge distancing, and what like this sensor, just try and use it against against your partner. And for the really heavy, usage of the techniques, maybe they can hit a heavy bag and stuff. But some techniques you can't really do that against a heavy bag because they are like a little intricate, I would say. Yeah. Having said that, but with the Mantis, the student develops power very quickly, and to use that power against somebody, even inadvertently, you can really hurt someone, by just by mistake. So it's a fine line.
I see. I agree with you. And my last question is, if you would have to do an advice to a beginner that is starting Kung Fu, what would be? And for an advanced Kung Fu guy that wants to like reach another high level, what kind of advice would you give?
Okay, for a beginner, I would advise them that get yourself physically strong, flexible, do break falls, lift weights, do free weight, body weight exercises, become strong. By strong, I don't mean big and muscular or whatever, but just strong and learn how to move your body through space, through free weight, body weight exercises or, compound movements. Just become strong, and that will really help your training. It'll take your training to another level. For the beginner, I would say, for the advanced, I would say, go back to basics. Go back to what is the bread and butter of your system, and question yourself that how well do you really know it, and if you really don't know parts of it, why don't you know them, and then work on them and make your foundation as strong as possible, because that is what will support your Kung Fu throughout. Even myself, for example, I practice the basics for my Mantis style, my Pak Mei. I just do the basics, the basic work day in and day out. And maybe sometimes I may do the forms, and I always find that I'm better at the forms and the movement because I have these little basics, snippets of basics throughout. So for the advanced person, if you really want to go high, go back to your basics, and just go back to the drawing board, relook at it, relook at your basics, and after that, think what are the principles that are there in your system, and think how would those principles be used against different scenarios. So, for example, if you're I'll just use a random example, and I'm sorry, guys. If you're a Wing Chun guy, don't practice against another Wing Chun guy. It's not really going to help you. If you're a Wing Chun guy, if you're an advanced Wing Chun guy, for example, think how will you use your Wing Chun against what is out there. Because when you actually engage, it'll only be your favorite bread and butter techniques that will come out. You'll just be using a few things. And are you really good at those things? So that's what. So go back to your basics, examine your principles of your system, and see how much can you apply them across the board. That's what I'd say. And make yourself strong.
So I would like to thank you about this interview. It was really helpful for me, and I am really sure that for the viewers of the channel, it will be. And I will put your profile in your channels, your contact in the description, so people can reach you and maybe learn in this Sanford Brainmate style that is really unique and good. So
thank you. I inherited the style from my Sifu, by the way. So did my Sihing. So we inherited it from him, and it's our job to carry it on forward.
So we really like you. So for the people that are watching, don't forget to like and subscribe for more content.
Thank you.